Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Sandra. 我是 Sandra，你们的老师。大家喂，大家好。In fact，大家中午好。I think we've done the time of the day and how to call it every time slot in Mandarin. But if you don't remember, 中午 means noon. It should be lunchtime for a lot of you folks now. So 中午好 and of course 你们好吗？你们好吗？ I hope the answer is 很好。And of course, 欢迎欢迎欢迎. Welcome to Community Mandarin. And today we're still going to piggyback on what we learned for the last 3 times. We were working on some useful adjective pairs. Useful adjective pairs. So today, without further ado, let's jump into our material. Let's first switch to our favorite layout. And this is what we learned last time, right? This is what we learned last time. So last time we introduced another pair of adjectives that I personally think it's pretty useful if you've been learning Mandarin for a little bit. It is 浓 and 淡. And then we say 浓, it's not necessary when used to describe colors. It's not necessarily how should I put it? Not necessarily a deep, means deep color, means it's strong. It's strong. It's a strong color. It could be a very bright, say magenta or fuchsia. It still can be called 浓. And then it means it's usually in a quiet, light sense. And sometimes, a lot of times, it equals to a color being light in color. But when we're talking about 浓 and 淡, when this pair is used to describe colors, 颜色, we're talking about saturation, not like deep or light on the color spectrum. All right. So on top of that, this is what we're talking about when we're talking about 浓 and 淡. 浓 means it's strong or dense in color, flavor, scent. And 淡, it's the opposite of 浓. It means light or bland in color, flavor, scent. Okay, now let's look at 2 new words for you guys. The first one is 浓汤. 请跟我读浓汤. 浓汤. And the second one is 请跟我读淡水. 淡水. Alright, so 浓汤 and 淡水汤. As you can see from the screen, it is a noun. It means soup. So 浓汤. Can you guys guess what that means? And next one, 淡水. I assume by now 水 should not be a new word for you guys. 水, of course, means water. So 淡 means light, means bland, right? Light water, bland water, what does that mean? Let's take a look. 看一下. There we go. So, actually, when I first came to America, one thing that kind of, I would say it's not a culture shock, but it's a culture difference for me is when you guys are talking about soup, you were usually talking about like more creamy, like more dense in texture soup, while in Mandarin, in Chinese culture and languages, when we're talking about tang, aka soup, we're talking about more like a broth situation. We basically call broth tang. It's more like a liquidy texture, contrary to what we have. Like we have a lot of like you put a lot of potato, or you put a lot of heavy cream, or you put a lot of flour to kind of thicken the soup. Thick soup, I would call it. So 浓汤 means thick soup in Mandarin. Thick soup in Mandarin, or soup soup in American culture. Okay, so 浓汤, it's not just tang, it's one of those more creamy texture soups. And 淡水, you can see from the screen, it means unsalted water. So it is the opposite of your seawater, opposite of the ocean water, which is salty to begin with. So when we say 淡水, we're talking about the water that we can use for crops, for consumption, all the usable water that does not need to be filtered or processed first. I don't know what they do to seawater, but when we're talking about 淡水, it's a kind of resource. It's from your creeks, from your river, from your um, what else is that? Uh, yeah, you know what I mean. Reservoir. Okay, so we have 浓汤 and 淡水, and now maybe you're curious, like how do we say the opposite of them? How do we say the opposite of them? Let's take a look. 看一下. So the opposite of 浓汤, it is 清汤. It is when in Chinese culture, we can simply call it 汤, but if you want to be more specific, you're talking about a broth, we can say 清汤. With 清 carries the meaning of being clear, clear, translucent. Okay, so when we say 清汤, it's a broth. It's translucent. It does not have heavy cream or patir or flour, whatever you use to stick in your soup. And then the opposite of 淡水, of course, it's not salt water, it's seawater. Because when we're talking about 淡水, like I just said, 淡水 is a kind of water resource that you can use. So seawater, 海水, 海水, with the phrase seawater, you can probably guess, 海 means sea, 海 means sea. So 海水, seawater, is the opposite of 淡水 we were talking about here. Okay. And next up, since we've learned 浓 and 淡, and I think I've covered a lot of the aspects when, how we use it to describe things. Now let's look at another set of useful adjective pairs. It is, first, 请跟我读, it's the dark blue side. 请跟我读, the first one is 深, 深. The second one is 浅, 浅. So 深 and 浅. First, let's look at the Chinese characters. They both, again, have that component that indicate it has something to do with water. We have the 三点水, the three dots in there, right? Okay, yes. Originally, this pair is used to describe something related to water, of course. 深 means deep, and 浅 means light, shallow, light, shallow. So as you can see, 深 and 浅 can be used to describe depth, of course, depth for water. And then 深 and 浅 can also be used to describe, all right, I need to change the setting so I'm not blocking a lot of the stuff. All right, there we go. Is it better? Cool. And 深 and 浅 can also be used to describe the depths of a color, the depths of a color. So over here we have dark blue and light blue. In Mandarin, how do we say it? I hope you didn't forget how to say blue in Mandarin. That's correct. So for dark blue, we say 深蓝, 深蓝. Or you want to be more specific, you can say 深蓝色, 深蓝色. And for light blue, we say 浅蓝, 浅蓝. We use 深 and 浅 to describe the depths, on the darker side or on the lighter side of a color spectrum, So, okay, so that's it for today, guys. And of course, when we have more time, we're gonna be discussing about the difference between 浓淡 and 深浅. But I guess like we kind of already discussed it a little bit. When we're talking about 浓淡, we're talking about how strong, how the influence. When we're talking about 深浅, we're talking about on the color spectrum, we're talking about going deep or going light. All right, so that's it for today, guys. And as always, thanks for tuning in. And of course, I encourage you guys to visit Rola's website as well as our YouTube channel. I'll see you next week. How do we say next week? 下星期 Yes, 下星期再见